There's a big question. What's going to happen at the end of the Kirk Ferentz era? We break it down today. We got Biz with us. It's Locked On Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent. That's Biz, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also see us on YouTube. While you're there, hit the subscribe button. Helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Place your first $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Biz, good to see you again. And boy, off a pitiful performance. And I haven't gone through and ranked them, but it's got to definitely be up there. Some of the worst losses in the Kirk Ferentz era. Losing that one, kind of what was on the line, what was still available for this Iowa football team. That one stung Saturday night against Michigan State.
Yeah, I sent the trend, Trent. I think I've been on 3 times this year, and I think it's been after all 3 losses.
Yeah,
So I brought good luck because we bounced back from all 3 losses and played significantly better. I think I came on before Minnesota, before Washington, and now before Northwestern. So, maybe we'll keep that trend going. But I'd sure like to come on and talk about more positive things. But yeah, that was I don't know what the hell that was on Saturday. It wasn't what we're accustomed to, and I don't know. There's a lot of red flags to talk about from Saturday. That just looked like a team that, from the very get go, it just looked like a team that didn't seem to be. They seemed disinterested almost. It just wasn't. There wasn't a lot of energy at any point on defense, and offense. That first half was a complete debacle. So, yeah, not good.
We start with the first half of the game, and Cade McNamara really struggled. It did sound like there was a potential of a change in the opening drive of the second half. Changed that as they marched down the field and get a score and get right back into the football game. But I was of the belief that Cade McNamara was shaking off the rust, that we were seeing at least incremental improvements that made you believe that at minimum he could become an average quarterback. Now, as we kind of go through things, the guy that we saw at Michigan certainly is never coming back. The guy that Iowa believed that they're going to get, I don't think is there. It's one thing to, just have some limitations physically, throws, things that you just can't make. But he's missing easy throws. He's missing wide open things. And these are the same conversations we had with the previous longtime starter in Spencer Petras. Just can't make the makeables. And in the Iowa offensive scheme, you just can't afford that. That was hideous in the first half. And though it was better, major concerns right now. And in a season that looks like to be a lost season, I know a lot of people clamoring, obviously, for a quarterback change.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about the quarterback because, honestly, it's such low-hanging fruit at this point. Everybody agrees that he's just not very good. I've talked about it in the past. I thought the big difference that Cade was going to bring to this program was I thought he had a confidence and a swagger about himself early last year. Going to Iowa State, I thought he really handled himself really well and was a great leader in that game. I don't know what happened when he got injured last year, but that confidence and that swagger is gone, and it ain't coming back at this point. He just looks less than confident in the pocket, and he just looks like he's, he is what he is at this point. And so, we all know his limitations. He's not a good running quarterback. He's not ever been the world's strongest armed quarterback. So if you're not those things, then you better have some confidence and some swagger to you. All you got to do is look 2 hours to the west to see exactly that. Rocco Beck played like crap for most of that game last week, but his confidence and his swagger is what won that game for them. He just never backed down, and he wasn't going to let them lose that game. And right now that's just not there with McNamara. So I don't know if it's there with Sullivan either, but there's just I don't know. Right now, I want to spend a lot more time talking about the defense than I do the quarterback, because the quarterback, like I said, the quarterback's low hanging fruit. Everybody agrees on that. But to me, the much bigger issue from Saturday night is the defense.
So you bring back 9 starters from a year ago. There were obviously Cooper DeJean moves on. We knew that was going to happen. But Logan Lee and Joey the Bull Evans, I guess they were that important. the lack of a pass rush, the lack of physicality in the back end, guys that have played football that just aren't bringing it at the same level. And we see Quinn Schulte, I think, continuing to struggle and not looking like the guy we saw a couple of years ago. Is it just physically he's taken too much? And the guy that actually showed a little pop, showed that he was more than just a walk-on, try-hard kid. There seemed to be more early in his career than there is now. And you go through this roster, not being able to figure out the second cornerback spot. There's just so many concerns, so many cracks, and 19 missed tackles, according to Pro Football Focus, in the game against Michigan State. That's not Iowa football.
Yeah. And I think what you're seeing, Trent, I mean, you talked about 9 starters, and a lot of them are, sixth-year guys that are 23, 24 years old. I think what you're seeing with a lot of those guys is that they've maxed out their potential. I mean, they're guys that they're good football players, but they're also 24 years old at this point. They are what they are, and they haven't taken a step forward this year. Guys like Castro and Higgins and Schulte and all those guys, they're good football players, but they haven't. I mean, I think what we're seeing is this team had one absolute superstar on defense last year and a bunch of other really good defensive players. And obviously the superstar left for the NFL, and the rest of good players are still here, but we don't have that. We don't have that superstar on defense. We don't have the Cooper regime. We don't have the, go back to Epinesa days. I mean, we're getting zero pressure on the quarterback right now, and that's a huge problem. And so, when you don't have a superstar on your defense, you better be incredibly sound all across the board, and we're not right now. We don't have that second. We don't have that second quarterback position, and quite frankly, our safeties have been bad. I mean, Wampa's not very good. Schulte's not been very good. I mean, we just haven't been very good on the back end. And when you combine being not very good on the back end with not being able to get a pass rush, you get what happened Saturday night. You get picked apart by an average quarterback. So, it's you talked about us at the very beginning, Trent. What happened on Saturday night just doesn't happen with Iowa football very much. It's one of the worst losses, in the last decade. I went back and looked. How many times do you think in the last decade have we lost by double digits to any unranked teams?
Oh, 5?
3.
3.
3 times. Yeah, 3 times. This is the 4th. The 3 times. 2 of them were back-to-back in 2021. It was, we come off the huge win against Penn State, and we lose Purdue and Wisconsin back-to-back.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2, that was kind of the beginning of the end for Iowa's offense. That's when we went, we went into a complete tank of offensive performance since then. But the other one, the third one, is the one that's really interesting, and I think is the probably the most accurate comparison to what happened Saturday night. You go back 10 years ago, 2014. It's a game that I think most people have probably tried to scrub from their memory. But you remember going up to the Gophers and getting stomped 51-14?
Yes, yeah, really, really cool day up there. I believe Ricks and Boner were in the end zone and on TV a couple of times that day.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's a lot of similarities to that game to what we saw on Saturday, because that team in 2014 was 6-2 going into that game. Wow. They were not bad. They were a team that had shown some promise, had actually been playing okay, and they had a lot of things to play for going up there. And they went up and just got stomped. And I remember about that game, we just looked completely unprepared on defense. If you remember, that was the game Minnesota ran a ton of jet sweeps and a lot of, screens, just stuff to get out on the perimeter. And we looked clueless. And that never happens with Iowa defense until Saturday night. We looked clueless again. We just looked like Michigan State was one step ahead of us every step along the way. I mean, we looked like we were completely shocked by Childs' ability to pass the ball. And I think we were so worried about his ability to scramble that we didn't blitz him, didn't get him uncomfortable at all. And that's what happened. So, that 2014 team, after that loss, things went south pretty quickly. That's the year that we ended up losing 3 straight games. We lost to Nebraska at the end of the year in overtime. And then you had the huge, the off season of complete controversy with, we had the quarterback controversy of Rudock and Beathard. It's a lot of similarities, and I just worry. I worry about what's going to happen with this team the next 5 weeks. It's not that like I said, there's a lot of red flags from Saturday, but the defense's lack of I don't know if you call it preparation or desire or whatever you want to call it, just did not seem so un-Iowa like. I don't know what the answer is, but I think there's some concerns.
Schedule is set up in a way where Iowa can go on a run, but if they don't, it's going to be some bad losses in there, and the negativity is going to build. Well, Biz and I were around. We were in college at the time of the transition from the Hayden Fry era to the Kirk Ferentz era. We asked the question, how does the Kirk Ferentz era end? We'll talk about that as we continue. It's Locked On Hawkeyes. We're back with more here in a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. NFL fans, get the season going with a big return on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you want a live bet, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's right, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. NFL gets going with Biz's Rams tonight against the Vikings, number right around the field goal in that one. Of course, they got you covered in college football as the Hawkeyes are currently favored by 13.5 with an over-under of 37.5 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet with FanDuel. For more information, just visit FanDuel.com. Trent and Biz back with you here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Biz, the big question that we're all wondering. Kirk Ferentz is 69 years old. He'll be 70 by the start of next season. When will it end? How will it end? A lot going on. I equated, of course, the end of the Hayden era. Now, there were health concerns that were happening at that time. He was battling cancer that maybe led to the decision for him to walk away a little bit easier, or maybe not even easier, but just the transition became apparent that it was going to happen. Kirk, healthy, out there, energy appears to be good. How does the Kirk Ferentz era end?
Yeah, I don't know. I worry it's not going to end well. I think the thing that's obvious, Trent, is I think he really wants to stick around and break the wins record. And he needs to get 5 wins to do that. And I think it's probably unlikely that's going to happen this year. So I think it's probably likely that means he's coming back next year. And if you look at that roster for next year, Trent,
it's
yikes.
ugly.
It is. The good news is with the NIL era, you can do a better job of quick fixing. Christ, look at Indiana, look at that. We can go out and fill some holes, but will we? We've that's not really been our MO. We've tended to try to reward people that have stuck in the program and use our NIL money that way, which I like. But for next year, if we don't go out and fill some holes quickly, what's the best case scenario next year? 8-4. That'd be a heck of a year with the talent we're going to have next year. But you talked about the Hayden end. Hayden in 1997, his second to last year, that was a team. If you remember that, there was a lot of optimism. That team had tons of talent. Tim DeWhite, Tavian Banks. It was coming off a 9-3 year in 96. Started 4-0, and then the wheels fell off. You go to Ohio State and Michigan back-to-back. The Michigan game, remember, it was Tom Brady, just an absolute heartbreaker of a 28-24 loss.
Iowa was the better team that day.
Well, we got some – Tim Dwight had a punt return. Banks had an 80-yard run. Things were broke our way. We're up 21-7 at the half. I can remember that game incredibly well, and unfortunately, everything we blew it. But we ended 7-5 that year, and then 98, obviously 3-8. And things were really poorly. So there's some similarities there. I think this team this year probably ends 8-4 somewhere in there, and then you're looking at next year. I don't know. It's just you asked the question of how does it end. I just looking at how this year has gone and the talent we have coming back next year. I don't see any way it ends particularly well. Do you?
No, not at all. And it ends poorly for almost everybody. I mean, at the biggest levels, Joe Paterno, different conversation, obviously, with him. But Bobby Bowden, I mean, for our era, Biz, Bobby Bowden, what he was doing in the ripping off, what was it, 14 consecutive years of top five finishes, and it ended poorly. But even programs of similar ilk, Bill Snyder in K State, he had that program humming, and it limped to the finish line. Frank Beamer at Virginia Tech. It rarely ends for these longtime veteran coaches on a high note. You don't see that happen very often. It usually kind of falls to a whimper, and it appears with the momentum of the program. And that's what makes this season as a whole so frustrating. You had a schedule that set up an incredibly good way to make a run at a college football playoff, because the future, it gets a lot more difficult. Biz, I know you've seen the schedules going forward and what it's going to look like, but next year, okay, got to go to Iowa State. Your other road games next season, at Wisconsin, at USC, at Rutgers, at Nebraska. You couple it with home games against Penn State, Oregon, Minnesota, Michigan State, Indiana. Try to find 6 wins on that schedule with the roster that we have right now coming back. Like you said, with the NIL, they can plug holes. They can go out and get some dudes. And that's not alone. 26 is difficult. 27 is difficult. The schedule this year was set up in a way where this was the year. It's not going to happen now. And now you look towards the future, it gets scary in a hurry.
Well, all those guys you talked about, all those coaches, they all have similar characteristics. That they're all incredibly strong-willed, stubborn individuals who have an incredible belief in themselves. And I think you have to have that to be a great coach. And there's no doubt. I mean, look no further than the Chris Doyle interview this week. He starts talking about how they haven't even spoken to each other in 4 years. I mean, I think you can probably make an argument that Chris Doyle was, up until this happened, probably one of, if not his best friend. I mean, they've been tied together at the hip for 20 some years, and now they don't even communicate with each other. And so that same stubbornness is part of what's made our program great. But the flip side of that is that's why all those guys you talked about didn't end well, because of their stubbornness and their unwillingness to see the right time to walk away. And the right time to walk away was probably at the end of last year. And now it's kind of that window for him to walk away and really feel like it was the right decision is probably out the window now, because I think he's locked in on wanting, like I say, I think he really wants to get the wins record, and I think he wants to see things end well. And I don't know, like you said, it's a messy situation. I think every true Iowa fan, even if it ends poorly, is going to love Hayden. You look back at Hayden. Hayden is universally loved. But we were there. We were in college, 97, 98. He was not universally loved down the stretch. It was not. Nope. It was not and he didn't. Even though he had cancer and he had the health issues, he didn't want to leave. I mean, he was gently pushed out the door. But looking back at it, people have like I said, Hayden is universally loved. I think Kirk will always be universally loved, no matter how it ends. But man, I'd like to see it end well.
Yeah, maybe it can end this year on a high note. What do you expect? Bounce back. You talked about the bounce backs, and that has been Kirk Ferentz's greatest strength. When backs against the wall, negativity all around. I anticipate they play well on Saturday.
Yeah, and go back to that 2014 year, even after we got throttled 51-14, and even the season ended poorly, but we did turn around the next week and beat a decent Illinois team, an Illinois team that was a bowl team, by 2 touchdowns. So I don't think this is a decent Northwestern team. I think it's a below average Northwestern team, and I think if we have any heart left whatsoever, we should win this game by 10 or more. So I think it'll be a bounce back. But at this point, Trent, this team, it is what they are. What they are. I don't see us. We're a flawed team. We haven't played clean football across the board all year long. We got the Washington game. You can say we played pretty close to clean football, but outside of that, I don't see there being any games where we just come out and dominate from beginning to end. We're an inconsistent football team. That's what we are at this point.
And if you put Kim, the kicker from Michigan State, on Washington, might be a different conversation too. I mean, the way they were marching up and down the field early in that football game and really throughout. And then Iowa was just able to hold them when they got into plus territory a few different times. With that aside, Biz, this has been kind of a negative one. So let's bring some optimism, to the table. Let's talk a little basketball, both men's and women's. This team, I think both of us and a lot of people, at least on the local front, much higher than both the regional and the national media is. We're going to talk some basketball as we continue. As we roll through a Thursday, this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less of at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. It is now available in the state of Iowa. It had been a while before we got it here, and of course, I have been able to jump in. It's very simple. Just picking more or less. Take a yardage number. And Patrick Mahomes, he's off to a slow start on the season. You want to take under on his passing yards, under on his touchdowns, over on his interceptions. You take those categories, you fill them up, and you can win a whole lot of money. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. PrizePicks invented the flex play. Means you can still cash out your lineup even if it isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Sign up today. You're going to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts, like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value on your lineups. Think Justin Jefferson's going to get more than 83.5 yards next week? Christian McCaffrey, well, if he's healthy, you just cook up all kinds of different things with what's happening in the PrizePicks app. Right now, you can download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege. That's going to get you $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app, use the code LOCKEDONCollege, and $50 instantly with your first $5 lineup. With that, greatly encourage you to join us on PrizePicks. It's a fun experience and a fun way to get involved with the sports world. PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks, download the app today. Back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. I'm Trent. That's Biz. As we talk little hoops here. All right, Biz. Season is upon us. In fact, tomorrow night, exhibition game for the men's team. A week later, we'll see the women's team out on the hardwood at Carver-Hawkeye Arena. Let's start ladies first. I'll be honest, I'm really surprised that there's not more buzz for this team. Just a couple of votes in one of the polls. I can't remember if it was AP or the coaches, and the other one, just one single vote. I don't think this team is going to be a contender for a Big Ten title or a Final Four or anything like that, but a fringe top 25 team at minimum, I think is a baseline for what they return and what they brought in with Lucy Olson. I guess the national media does not agree. Are you surprised by the lack of belief that this Iowa team can at least be solid this season?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, especially when you look at, obviously the media, the television networks still love us because man, we're on a lot of big Sunday afternoon, big network games. So we're gonna have an opportunity to show if we're capable a lot of times. I think the whole key to this team is Sydney Affolter healthy. I think she is she's the key to this team. I think she needs to take that jump forward and be the glue, the Kate Martin. And if her knee is a problem all year long, then I think they'll struggle. But if she's healthy and you've got the main three of Affolter, Lucy Olson, and what's her name? I'm just completely on a blank on her name. The post player,
Stolke.
I'm brain farted on Stolke. Yeah, exactly. If those three are fully healthy, and if the Ava Hayden ends out being as good as they claim she's going to be, then yeah, I think they're a top 25 team. But the Big Ten got a lot better, and they're going to have their bumps in the road. So, I mean, do I think they can be a top 25 team? Absolutely. But do I think they're going to be a, Sweet 16 team or better than that? Probably not. I mean, but I don't know. I mean, I'm super excited. I mean, we've got season tickets. They're sold out again. I mean, I think it's just awesome. The enthusiasm and the excitement that has continued post Caitlin Clark era. We'll see how long it lasts. But I would love for 1/10 of that enthusiasm and excitement to carry over to the men's team.
On the men's side, new names, new faces, along with some veterans. Of course, Sanford at the forefront of that, along with Owen Freeman. You bring back those two guys, that's a great starting point for this team. But I also love the way that they filled the gaps, if you will, bringing in Drew Thelwell, at minimum, a good, competent backup point guard that I think is going to help in a myriad of different ways. Traore is an exciting prospect. The two freshmen that come in with different skill sets in Cooper Koch and on the other side, Chris Tajo. I mean, you're bringing in some athleticism. You're bringing in with it, hopefully, improved rebounding and some defense to go along with. We know Fran's teams are going to be able to score. I look at this team, and I think that at minimum, the baseline is an NCAA tournament team. And I think there's even more upside to that. Now, how high is that upside? I don't know. The good news is, though, the Big Ten stinks this year. In an 18-team league, now it could be, there might be, I don't know, 14 teams that are anywhere between 12 and 8, 9 and 11. I don't think that would be a surprise by any means. But, boy, Iowa's got a real chance, I think, this year to make a big jump up. And even in a down league, that's a good thing. I think this team has a chance to be really, really solid and definitely towards the top third of this league.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I are probably in the minority, but I'm really excited about this team. I think this team's going to be good. I think the name you didn't mention is Josh Dix. I think our ability to keep our big three, to keep Freeman, Sanford, and Dix is huge because, in the transfer portal era, keeping three guys with that kind of talent and experience is not easy to do. And then I think, like you said, I think Fran filled in the pieces better than he usually does. I think he brought in some much needed athleticism, some focus on defense. I mean, we're never going to be obviously defensive focused in general, but I think they're going to be at least better defensively. And I don't know. I'm tired of people. I'm ready to enjoy the year. I understand. I get people's frustration that until we make a second weekend run, none of it really matters because it's still the same thing over and over. But I don't know. I'm going to try as hard as I can to just enjoy it and hope that I'm right because I think this team's going to be good. Are they going to be world beaters? No, but I think they can, like you said, make a run and be a top half Big Ten team and win 20-plus games in the tournament. Absolutely.
For the first time in 7 years, it's going to be different for Fran. He's not going to have one of his sons on his team. And we talked about Connor and Patrick both a ton throughout the years, but I think that's something that might be good for Fran too. I mean, just even if you're tough on your kid, even if you're a coach that has, there's just always at times, I'm sure weirdness, there's uncomfortable moments for players, for teammates, for the coaching staff as a whole. And that maybe we get a renewed Fran McCaffrey, because there were times that Fran looked tired last year.
Well, not only for Fran, I think it's good for the fan base. I think there was some McCaffrey fatigue probably there. I mean, Connor, I think as Connor, the last couple of years, I think Connor finally begrudgingly earned the respect of the fan base, and they realized how smart of a basketball player he was. But early on, people were not big Connor McCaffrey fans, and then kind of the opposite with Patrick. I think most people, when Patrick came in, thought, man, this guy's going to be a really good player and he's going to blossom into a potential, second, third team all Big Ten player. And obviously that didn't happen for a variety of reasons. And he, quite frankly, regressed the last couple of years. And that makes things really hard it makes it hard when any player regresses, but it's even harder when it's the coach's kid. And so, I think it's probably good for everybody that there's no McCaffreys on the team. It's good for Fran. It's good for the fan base. Clean start. Like I said, I hope everybody just kind of goes into this season with a healthy dose of give this team a chance. I get it. It's fun to bash Iowa basketball and talk about the negatives of Fran, but you and I have talked about it a lot. There's way more positives with what Fran McCaffrey has done to this program than negatives, and so I'm gonna try as hard as I can to focus on those positives. So we've been way too negative about Iowa football.
Yes.
So I'm going to try to be only positive on Iowa basketball today. I mean,
Well,
you can certainly bring up the issues with Fran, and there are issues, but for now, the season hasn't even started. Let's keep it positive.
for now, absolutely. All right, Biz, let's get out of here with our.
Until they prove us wrong, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt this year.
Oh boy, and I can see the text thread already as it starts up, and Melt will be at the forefront of that one. All right, Biz, let's get out of here with our FanDuel pick of the week. Start with Iowa. 13.5 is the number. You like to jump in totals. I'll tell you, Iowa, they're an over machine this year. 37.5. Give me the over in the game.
Yeah, that seems like the obvious play, but give me the Wildcats at 13.5. I just whether it's Fitzgerald or whoever the hell the coach even is now,
David Braun.
Very rarely do we go out and take care of business the way we should against Northwestern. I think we'll win, but like I said earlier, I don't think it's going to be I think this team is what they are at this point. It's not going to be all that pretty of a performance. I don't think we're going to walk away feeling all that any better about this team necessarily, but I do think we'll win. So, I see it more as a, 24-13 Iowa win, something along those lines. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope we come out and throttle them, but history tells you that rarely happens.
When we were together a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that Cal pick game stunk to high hell, and it did, as Cal got the cover in that one. Anything jumping out to you this week? Any game that you love?
Yeah, give me the Badgers plus 6.5. I think you got a couple of things at play here. One, Wisconsin's played better football, and you get a night game at Camp Randall. That place is going to be rocking. Second, I don't know if you've paid attention at all, but the whole controversy with the Penn State players and the sexual assault stuff. I mean, how James Franklin handled that yesterday was cartoonishly bad, and I just think he's such a buffoon. Like how he showed it again yesterday. Until he proves otherwise, I don't think he's capable of winning important games. And he may win this game. Wisconsin's not great, but if you're going to give me a night game at Camp Randall with a decent Badgers team and give me almost a touchdown, I think it's 6.5. I'll take it. So
I got one other one that jumps off. I think Nebraska hangs around against Ohio State. Huge number. It's up to 26.5. I'm going to grab the points. Huskers obviously looked brutal last week, got run off the field by Indiana. I think they'll make some plays and at least hang around here, so I'm going to grab that big number. Give me the Huskers plus 26.5. A couple of Big Ten plays for us this week. Biz, enjoy Kinnick Stadium. Hopefully the Boo Birds stay away. Hopefully the offense gets humming right away, and we see a nice Iowa victory over the weekend. We'll talk to you again hopefully next week and hopefully off a win. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me. Go Hawks.